Hi, my name is Danny Poleto, and I'd like to tell you my story, my testimony of the way my life was prior to receiving the Lord in my life. I came from a really scary background of drugs, alcohol. I was totally in despair, totally sad. I didn't like myself one bit. My self-esteem was terrible. It's ironic because I grew up in a really good Christian family, and I knew I had great parents, and so I have no excuse other than I just didn't follow the right path, and I allowed myself to get into a really dark place. By all accounts, I should not be here right now telling my story. I smoked crack for a long time. I've had what I think were heart attacks. I started doing heroin to come off the crack. I injected needles in my arms, got hepatitis C, just everything possible, chaotically I could come up with. I had it. I went through divorce. I went through all kinds of heartbreaks. It's really just a really sad background. My mother and my father both taught me all about Jesus, but I never let him fully come in. Even when was like every hour of my life was my darkest hour. I never thought I was going to be able to get out of the cycle I was in. It was just the most horrible thing you could ever imagine. And every morning waking up just hating myself, crying out to Jesus, but I just never really totally surrendered my life to him. I finally, after many years, and I know to this day that the Lord allowed me to live because He had a greater plan for me. I went through times when I really don't understand how I got out of it without being dead. I had hepatitis C, my liver was getting enlarged. Finally, I really believe Lord let me go through this to build my faith up and to finally learn that my only way that I could break this drug addiction and just addiction to all depression and everything bad you can think of. I would tell jokes and crack up to avoid talking about any feelings I had. Now I have no shame in that. I really didn't like myself, and finally, after just being in this pit of just chaos and my life was an absolute train wreck, I finally, even though I knew Jesus all along, I finally surrendered totally to Jesus. 8 years ago, I put myself in hospitality house, which was a good tool. It was a good reason, but while I was in there, I had a lot of time to really think and write things down, and I started going over to Victory Church, and I felt the Spirit of God just completely take me over. His love for me and for anyone that gives their life to them is absolutely amazing. I went in there and surrendered, got on my knees. I surrendered my life to Jesus. It's the best day of my life. I have 2 children who I was letting down when I was doing all these drugs and bad things. And now, after surrendering to Jesus and letting Him into my life, my 2 sons are so proud of me, and we have the greatest thing you can imagine. I got on my knees, surrendered to Jesus, and I felt nothing but the amazing love of God just completely take my whole being right over. It had to be a complete surrender, because like I said, all along, even when I was on crack, I said, oh, Jesus, stop me from this, stop me. And it wasn't like some kind of lightning bolt, but it was just this unbelievable presence of God's love, just completely engulfing my whole spirit and just taking over everything that I was. I cried like a big baby through church for like 5 months straight, every Sunday. Just cried, and what I know that it was God's cleaning me out. He cleaned every piece of guilt out of me, every shame I had. I have no problem facing my family anymore, who I was letting down nonstop. Through all my bad years, I let them down a lot. And now they just love me. They always loved me, but now they trust me. Now I just live my life for Jesus. All I can say is glory to God. The love of God is amazing. I don't care what problem you're having in life, how terrible anybody is, how much they can't stand themselves or the life they're living, God will change that. If he can save somebody like me, a guy that had needles in his arms and smoking cigarette butts out of ashtrays at a mobile station, wondering where I was going to eat next, all that kind of stuff, it's not anywhere near what God has planned for his children. He loves us, and he loved me enough to save me from that. And I don't even consider myself an addict at all anymore. They say you should not say you're done with it, but I'm done with it. God changed me. I'm an absolute new creature in Jesus Christ. He's inside me. I have the mind of Christ now. I've been totally transformed into a whole loving person that I care about people. The selfishness of drug addiction is completely out of my being, and I'm just full of the joy of the Lord. It's my strength every day. I don't worry about a thing. I'm not afraid of anything at all anymore. I don't really want for anything. All I really want for is God's presence, and the more of that I get, the more amazing, more amazed at God I am. And allowing Jesus into my life is the greatest, most wonderful decision I've ever made in my life. It's a total surrender. It's not a, like I said, I used to just lip services. Oh yeah, I believe in Jesus, I believe in Jesus. But when I really surrendered, and he took those tears out of my insides and had me cry them out, and all that guilt and all that shame just came out of me like a flood. And then he let his living waters come into me. And now that he's let them come into me and he saved my life, because that's what this really is. I should be dead. I should not be alive talking to right now. And God saved my life. And now all I want to do is give it back out there because of his love for me.